Right. Application of principles of selection and gradation. Right. We're going to see how principles of selection and gradation were applied to grammatical syllabus. Right. So, how to design grammatical syllabus? That was the question faced by applied linguists in the 1930s. And it's important to see like what means by selection and gradation before discussing its role in terms of developing the notion of grammatical syllabus. Selection is how to select what grammatical units to be selected, but gradation is just the grouping, like classifying those selected grammatical units into groups and sequence them in an order which is teachable and which is useful for learners. Right. It's very interesting to see how Palmer actually saw the role of the principles of selection and gradation. According to Palmer, selection should be done in a way which is appropriate and which is useful for learners. For example, some tenses are more useful than others. So we need to keep this element in mind before selecting grammatical units. And secondly, selecting prepositions according to their significance in a language course. And then syntactic rules, for example, from simple, the difficult to the complex. It wouldn't have been useful to start from anywhere and from difficult to complex or vice versa. And the grammar should be introduced gradually to the learners instead of exposing them to the complex structures. So Palmer actually, what Palmer argues is that the selection criteria and the gradation criteria really intrigued applied linguists, and they were concerned about syllabus design. All right. For selection and gradation, the criteria of simplicity and centrality was employed. Okay, let's have a look what it means, simplicity. For example, by simplicity, to teach grammatical units which are simple and which are easily understandable. For example, it's easy to teach the train arrived. It's easy to teach subject verb, and it's equally easy to teach subject verb complement. For example, she's a journalist. I mean, there is no complexity involved in this sentence. And similarly, we ate the fruit. Subject, verb, object. So it was sort of, starting from the basics, and that was the syllabus used in books used for general speaking purposes, right? And there was an exclusion criteria too. What was that? I mean, excluding the sentences which are too much complex and which are too long. For example, let's have a look at the sentence, having neither money nor time, deciding to buy a ticket to opera was out of question. Teaching such complex sentences was problematic, and that was the thing that was avoided while selecting grammatical units for syllabus taught in the earlier decades of the 20th century. Okay, and similarly, another criteria of selection was to start from the basics, simples, in a natural order. The way, the second language is learned. For example, the way Urdu is learned, starting from the noun, then switching on to the verbs, adjectives, and then possessives, and then simple present, futures. I mean, it would have been very unrealistic it was considered to be unrealistic to start, from complex structures. So that was a kind of approach used by linguists while designing his syllabuses based on grammatical units. And we've got a very interesting quote here, which signifies how selection and gradation were thought to be important. Obviously, the beginning should be slow and accurate. There is no room for mistakes, and it indicates that direct method was very much prevalent at that time because mistakes were out of the question. Rightly understood means the learners need to learn clearly the rules of grammar. Unless the first layer is firm, nothing should be built on. So it wasn't thought like rational to expose the learners to too much grammar, or all parts should be bound together, and there should be a system to teach grammar. Whatever proceeds forms a step to what follows. Last step should be traceable to the first by a clear chain. So obviously, the tension this quote reveals is that the researchers were looking for a systematic approach to design a syllabus based on grammatical units in the earlier decades of the 20th century.